I found it. I found it. The most racist tabletop role-playing game of all time. I found it. I figured out which one it is. You're going to be in shock and awe as I display this information to you. It is revolutionary. It's going to change the gaming industry more so than the OGL 1.1 has changed the gaming industry, or will change the gaming industry. This is just gonna blow your mind. You're not gonna believe it. So here we go. Here are some. What do I see right here? Orcs. Ooh. Hello, and thank you for stopping by my channel. I do appreciate everybody supporting my work. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed, and find me over on Rumble and on Twitter. Let's take a look at this image here. These are orcs, and what do I see here? I don't know this. The one on the left is the male, and he looks like he's maybe black. Maybe he's Hispanic. I think he's probably a combination. He's black and Hispanic. That's what I'm going to go with. And the one on the right, that's the female orc. She looks Blasian to me. I'm going with Chinese and African is what I'm thinking. Maybe Chinese and Arabic. I'm not sure, but that's what my guess is. You tell me. And guess what? It gets even better. It's not just orcs. I've zoomed in on this image. Check this out here. Oh, what do we got here? We got, let's zoom out a little bit here. We got a little dwarf over here on the left-hand side, and that is definitely a black woman. That orc is. And then we got this sort of dusky, charcoal gray individual who is clearly not human on the right. Big horns, big tusks, pointy ears, 7.5 feet tall or so. So definitely not human. Now what's going on here? And why is it that we see these people who are not white being also not human? These are images referring to a game, a very good game that you should be playing if you're a tabletop RPG. This is the game. You should be playing this game a lot because it's awesome. And that game is Shadowrun. Let's take a look here at the actual image. This is a edited version of the image referring to the races in Shadowrun. Here we go. Here's the original unedited version of the image that I found online. And what we see in the middle are humans, then we have orcs to the right, and then trolls to the far right. On the left of the humans we have elves, and then to the left of them we have dwarves. Now if you're not familiar with Shadowrun or the history of Shadowrun, originally, although they've changed the date to 2021, originally it was 2012. In 2012, on the winter solstice, the Earth changed to a new world. Right? This is a big thing in 2012. The Earth was going to be destroyed, etc. But the Earth changed into a new world, and magic became real, along with dwarves, elves, orcs, and trolls. And the way that the dwarves, elves, orcs, and trolls came about was simply humans changed. They woke up in the morning and they were suddenly different. They woke up in the middle of the night and they were suddenly different. Especially that would be a really jarring experience if you were a troll. I mean, I went from 5.5 feet tall to 7.5 feet tall, and I don't know what happened. Probably pretty painful process, but as you can see, it doesn't matter. I mean, based on the lore that I just explained to you, it does not matter what race of human you were to be changed into whatever other creature, by the way, ignore the typo on the right-hand side of this image. The people who write Shadowrun work in the metric system, that backwards divide by 10 system. They're not familiar with the correct divide by 4 and divide by 3 system that we use in the United States. So they put inches instead of feet, but they meant feet. So anyway, anybody could change to any race. So if you're a white man, you could turn into a orc. If you're a Asian man, you could turn into an orc. There's nothing forcing any particular group of people into any of the new races, the actual races. Now, Shadowrun has changed a lot over the years. The first edition, I believe, came out in 1990. Now, I might be off by a year or two, so don't quote me on that. But as I recall, it was towards the end of it was like September 1990 or something. But let's go ahead and take a look at what Shadowrun says about races so we can see exactly how racist this game is. All right, so what we got here is the 5th edition core rulebook on any flip. And we're going to look at the 5th edition because I have only ever seen the quick start guide for the 6th edition. And it has literally 2 sentences to describe each one of the different races. So we're going to take a look at this, which I think is going to be a little bit more comprehensive. It's not going to say much, but It'll give us more. All right, so we got orcs here. Homo sapiens robustus. Look like the creatures that have been dying by the score in fantasy movies and tridios for almost 150 years with... That's not true. 100 orcs have not... I mean... Shadowrun is set in this particular case, it's about 2070 is when this is set. Or orcs didn't start dying on screen until Lord of the Rings. There might have been other creatures that were similar in some past shows, and maybe I didn't see the Dungeons and Dragons movies because they looked god awful, but that they might have been in there too. But anyway, back to this zoo. So 150 years. With protruding brows, prominent tusks, and a large stature, orcs have trouble avoiding the stereotype of being unthinking, violent brutes. It doesn't help that there are more than a few orcs who are happy to live up to that stereotype rather than fight it. The end result is a certain underlying tension between orcs and humans, which leads to both groups often preferring to live in separate communities. Elves and orcs, on the other hand, often prefer to live in entirely separate countries. Despite the stereotypes, orcs can be found in all walks of life, from dank alleys to corporate boardrooms. They have a shorter lifespan than humans, which often leads to them having a certain desperation to pack as much living into their years as they can. Then we have trolls, which are another B-style sort of humanoid. Trolls, Homo sapiens ingentis. Trolls make orcs look like the ordinary man on the street. Orcs might be, on average, less than a quarter meter taller than humans. Trolls, by contrast, are more than a half meter taller than orcs. Orcs might look like a monstrous version of humanity. Trolls, on the other hand, look like vaguely human versions of a creature from your most recent nightmare, with thick curled horns on their heads. Some trolls prefer to have them cut, while others polish them with pride. Spiky protrusions of calcium on their joints and individual muscles that are larger than a full-grown pig. Trolls give the immediate impression that they are built for destruction. Most of them are able to live up to that image. Not all trolls, though, are about absorbing and inflicting damage. They have tried to find their way into different roles, but their large size combines with cultural stereotypes to make it hard for them to fit in. Orcs tend to be the most accepting of trolls, and the two metatypes often inhabit the same neighborhoods. Typically, these are not the most resource-rich neighborhoods in any given sprawl. Now, if you read in older versions of the book, there is more information on trolls and orcs. Here is the information on orcs in 3rd edition, which is the edition you should be playing, and we'll talk about that. I own the 3rd edition. It came out in 98. I don't own the 1st edition anymore. That's why I can't give you an exact date on that. I used to own it, but 3rd edition is way better. 3rd edition is the best version from what I can see. I'm just going to leave this up here for a minute so you can read it if you want to. You can pause the video. And then I'll come down here. Oh, that's human still. Come down here so you can kind of get an idea of the rest of the information on orcs and some of the information on trolls. So let's go ahead and look at, if I can find it, the attribute table for the different races. We'll zoom in here. So we want to make this full screen. So this used to be different variation here. So you have body, which is basically your toughness, your constitution. And you can see here that you got your human is 1 to 6. Elves 1 to 6. This is what this is saying. Dwarves are 3 to 8. Orcs are 4 to 9. They can be pretty robust. And trolls are 5 to 10. Imagine that. And then you have your agility. Okay, so how dexterous are you? How coordinated are you? Elves are the only ones that get a bonus. Trolls are the only ones who get a negative. They have bony protrusions in their skin. Yeah, it makes sense they wouldn't be as agile. And they also have longer, more ungainly limbs. The bigger and longer something is, the harder it is to move it around. Now, they've done this stupid thing here, and they did it in 4th edition, I believe, and it's in 5th edition now. They have reaction, which is an attribute. But they also have initiative, which is the same damn attribute. Only initiative is comprised of reaction and intuition. And intuition is your mental quickness, and then reaction is your physical quickness. It used to be that agility, which used to be called quickness, also measured your physical quickness. And your initiative, which is how quickly you act. It's not initiative and it's like, I'm going to take the opportunity to do this. No, it's initiative is in like, how quick do you respond? Initiative was a combination of quickness and intellect, or intelligence, which I believe it's called intelligence in 3rd edition. So 3rd edition is the best edition. It's the only one you should play. Obviously, you can get the PDF for free If you could find the actual book, or maybe on Amazon or something, I don't know how much it's going to sell for. So they have reaction here. Dwarves are the only ones. I don't know why dwarves get a -2 reaction and trolls don't. Seems to me like they should maybe. They have strength. Dwarves are slightly stronger than, well, significantly stronger than humans. They're as strong as orcs for some reason, even though it does bring this up in older editions. Dwarves only weigh like 100 and... hold on a second, let me get it. Dwarves on average weigh 54 kilograms and humans on average weigh 70 kilograms. Now it does talk about how dwarves have a different musculature, indicating they would have more fast-twitch muscle fiber, greater number of neurotransmitters connected to the muscles to give them that extra strength, which is what happens with apes and why they can weigh less than humans but be stronger than humans, or as strong as a full-grown human. Then your orcs, of course, they're bigger. They're broader. We saw in the image they were broader and thicker than humans, so that makes sense that they would be stronger. And then trolls, of course, are humongous, so they would, of course, be much, much more strong. Logic now is, or willpower. Okay, so dwarves get a bonus. That makes sense. I think that orcs should get a negative to this because they are beast-style. I mean, your cat doesn't have like the willpower to resist yummy food. The cat was just going to find that food and eat it, right? That's how animals work. Not only that, but orcs don't live very long. The oldest orcs are going to be 50, literally. The only ones that are older are the ones who were previously human and transformed into orcs, and they will live long. Apparently, they'll live a longer life. But newborn orcs, they're only going to live to be like, you can probably expect to get like 35 or 40, but once you hit 50, it's like, that's the oldest orc ever on record. So it seems to me that they would have a lower inhibitions period, not only culturally, but also as a genetic survival mechanism, because you have to get everything done to procreate now, right? There's no, I can put this off for a couple of years. No, it's like I'm procreating when I'm 15 because I'm an adult at 15 and I'm ready to go. Let's do it. And I think trolls should have a lower inhibitions as well because again they're more beast-style. That's just the reality. Logic. Okay, so they do reduce orcs and trolls by 1 each. Intuition, they reduce trolls by 1, but orcs by none. And then charisma, we got orcs are reduced by 1 and trolls are reduced by 2. Now, in older versions, in 3rd edition, intelligence, orcs are reduced by 2, I believe, and trolls are reduced by 2. Definitely trolls are reduced by 2. Orcs might only be reduced by 1. That is a problem, however, in the game because the average human intelligence, average human for all of these primary characteristics or attributes, there's no edge. Essence is always 6, and then reaction was in initiative. But for all of these, the primary characteristics attributes, 3 is average. So if you have a -2 on something, like you're at a 1 intelligence, and if that's just overall, like hey, this is the maximum measure and 1 is the lowest, you're talking about somebody who's functionally our tartar sauce. I mean, they had to have like a 35 IQ. Now, it might be if it's functional intelligence, then still, I mean, you're looking at like somebody with a 60 IQ, which is still, that's considered below the threshold for our tartar sauce, for mental our tartar sauce, yeah. So, yeah, that's a problem. But the way the game should address that, I think, solve that problem, is just go, well, the average isn't 3, it's 4, and 7 is the high point, or 8 is the high point. Just shift the categories over slightly. And then you have to worry about these people, these other races, actually coming out as being functionally mentally handicapped, or literally mentally handicapped in the end. Instead, no, they're going to do is just we'll make trolls and orcs smarter because, they should actually just be smarter. No, they shouldn't be. They should be less intelligent. Not because I have anything against trolls and orcs. They get the bonus of being physically more impressive. They get the drawback of being mentally less impressive. And they've always been depicted this way. I mean, the trolls in Tolkien, in The Hobbit, were so stupid they didn't realize the sun was rising, which would kill them. But that's how stupid they were. All right, so maybe trolls are depicted as stupid, It's just kind of the way things are. But anyway, like I was saying, you should play 3rd edition. Here's the 3rd edition. You can look at the cover. This is it. See if you can get a copy of it, or you can just, you can get it off the internet in some manner or fashion. If you really do want to get into it and really want to play, and this is like the thing that you want to do, you're like, yeah, okay, Shadowrun's awesome. It's like D&D only set in the future with cybernetics and all that fun stuff. You're also going to want to get the Man and Machine Cyberware supplement, the Shadowrun Companion supplement, the Magic in the Shadows supplement, and the Canon Companion supplement for guns and such. And then you might want to also get the paranormal animals supplement, just so you have like lots of different monsters and stuff to choose from. I'm trying to see if they have images of paranormal. I don't see it. It might be on here somewhere where I'm missing it, but it's worth checking all those out, so that way you can run a full game. And they're not, these are not in print anymore. You're not going to be able to find a new version of them, unfortunately, because this is a great game. And I wish that they hadn't gone. I mean, they got to make money somehow, so they move beyond into 4th edition and 5th edition and 6th edition. So the problem that I've seen with 4th edition is they have this great character creation system inside of Shadowrun called the priority system. 4th edition went with the build point system. Completely different. It was such a good idea that they went right back to the priority system in 5th edition, which is what we see here on this page when I make this full screen again. This is a breakdown of certain things. Actually, this is not the priority system, but it's on here somewhere. This is the priority system right here. So A, B, C, D. This is the most egalitarian way of assigning abilities to your character if you have a multiracial game. This is the most egalitarian way. The build point system is good, but like let's say I have to use 5% of my points to become an elf. Well, that's 5% of the points that a human will get and make them better that don't go to racial abilities. Now, yes, the elf is going to have some cool abilities with those 5% of your points that go into the racial abilities. But the thing is, an elf should be more awesome than a human only because they're going to live forever. So like I'm a 100-year-old elf and my body acts like that of a 20-year-old. Whereas you're a 20-year-old human and you only have 1/5 the amount of time on the planet that I've had to learn things, to do things, to master what you're doing. So elves should be better than humans. I'm sorry, that's just the reality, okay? You're dealing with these creatures in Shadowrun that are different sizes. For example, the troll. Imagine a world that is built for humans, and then you wake up in the morning and you're 7.5 feet tall. How are you going to walk through the doorway out of your bedroom? That's going to be a tight fit. Every bedroom that I've had, those doors are not that wide. I'm not a big dude, so it's never been a problem for me. But if I were a big chubber, or if I were really tall, that's going to be an issue. All of it. How are you going to drive your car if you're 7.5 feet tall? These are realities that are going to come crashing down around you when you deal with different actual species, different creatures who are intelligent. And D&D doesn't get this. They're all about, oh no, we can't make the races different. We got to make them the same. They're the same. They're the same. They're the same. Oh, there's nothing bad about being an orc or a goblin or any of that stuff. They're all good people. Can't we all just get along? So anyway, my recommendation, play 3rd edition Shadowrun. It's a great game. The system, the core system, hands down the best core rule system of any role-playing game that I've ever experienced. I've played 49 different games. I know there's a lot more games out there than that, but this is a really, really good one. And then the priority system, excellent for making characters of different races. I'm in the process of making my own game, so make sure you check that out. It should be available later this year, hopefully sometime within the next 6 months. But let's get into the truth. So I have not shown you the truth yet. So the truth is D&D is the most racist game ever made. It is not Shadowrun. Shadowrun does talk about race, and it talks about race in a very realistic way. When we look at the 3rd edition here, it talks about how orcs are the most populous of all of the races. So if you wake up one morning and then 3 billion people on the planet have changed into orcs and they're less human looking than humans, they look more like animals, and they all of a sudden are less intelligent than they were before, and they are more crass than they were before, you gonna have some prejudice against those types of people? I think you might. I mean, they're all of a sudden, why are they so important that they outnumber everybody else, but yet they're less intelligent and they're less respectful and they look like animals? Yeah, I think that there'd be some prejudice things, and 3rd edition does talk about that sort of thing. They talk just about the realities of living in a world where there are other races. And every game I know that has other races in it does talk about that reality. Now, the unfortunate thing about Shadowrun, and the only real unfortunate thing about the game, is that it is not a universal role-playing system. So you can basically only play Shadowrun with it. You could do a pretty good job of playing a medieval fantasy adventure because you take out the Matrix and you take out guns and cars, and it's like, okay, it's medieval fantasy. You got the different races here, and you can just pretend like you're in a medieval fantasy instead of in the future. And Shadowrun, I mean, there's one other quick thing here. So here's a map. This is 3rd edition. Here's a map of how the world shook out after, everything changed. You're going to get changes in the countries and in the way the world works. in general. And that does come sometimes from race, sometimes from ethnicity, sometimes from religion, a lot of times from resources. So they are acknowledging these are realities, that different races are going to do different things. They're going to make their own way. That's just how intelligent creatures operate, at least on Earth. Maybe they operate more fairly on other planets, but I doubt it. This is an ingrained thing in humans. Like, we are so used to pointing out and going, okay, that person over there is different from me. They probably don't have my best interests at heart. I'm going to avoid them. This was a survival mechanism for thousands of years on planet Earth. And now we're all trying to come together and live as one. And you think that people aren't going to be prejudicing against one another. But let's get into, like I said, the most racist game ever, which is Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to start by taking a look at the basic edition Red Book that was published. My version of it was published originally in 1980. And it was purchased at a yard sale many, many years ago. In a box. It was called the box set. But we're going to look at dwarves, right? Because in original Dungeons & Dragons, your race was your profession. So dwarves. I'll try to toss this up on the screen. I can just scan this in. So dwarves are short, stocky demi-humans, about 4 feet tall. All dwarves have long beards. They weigh about 150 pounds. Their skin is earth-colored, and their hair is dark brown, gray, or black. Stubborn but practical, dwarves love hearty meals and strong drink. They value good craftsmanship and are fond of gold. Well, who isn't fond of gold, right? Dwarves are sturdy fighters and are especially resistant to magic, as shown by their better saving throws against magical attacks. The prime requisite for a dwarf character is strength. A strength score of 13 or greater will give a dwarf a bonus on earned experience points. Restrictions. Dwarves use 8-sided dice to determine their hit points. They may advance to a maximum of 12th level of experience. Dwarves may use any type of armor and may use shields. They may use any type of weapon of normal or small size, but may not use longbows nor two-handed swords. A dwarf character must have a minimum constitution score of 9. Special abilities. Dwarves are very hardy creatures and have better saving throws than most other character classes. Dwarves often live underground and have infravision, heat-sensing sight, which allows them to see 60 feet in the dark. They are expert miners and are able to find slanting passageways, traps, shifting walls, and new construction 1/3 of the time, a roll of 1 or 2 on a die 6. When looking for them, all dwarves speak Common, Dwarvish, and the alignment tongue of the character, plus the languages of gnomes, kobolds, and goblins. It's weird there's no gnomes in basic Dungeons & Dragons, but it mentions them here. So, that doesn't sound like a dwarf is specifically a dwarf, does it at all? It's not racist at all. No racism there. Mm-hmm. So we move on to elves, the next entry. Elves are slender, graceful demi-humans with delicate features and slightly pointed ears. They are 5 to 5.5 feet tall and weigh about 120 pounds. They can be dangerous opponents, able to fight with any weapon and use magic spells as well, but prefer to spend their time feasting and frolicking in wooded glades. They rarely visit the cities of men. Elves are fascinated by magic and never grow tired of collecting spells and magic items, especially if the items are beautifully crafted. The prime requisites for an elf are strength and intelligence. If an elf has a score of 13 or greater, or in both strength and intelligence, the character will gain a 5% bonus on earned experience points. If the elf's strength is 13 or greater and his or her intelligence is 16 or greater, that character will earn a 10% bonus on earned experience. Restrictions. Elves use 6-sided dice to determine their hit points. They may advance to a maximum of 10th level of experience. Elves have the advantage of both fighters and magic users. They may use shields and can wear any type of armor, and may fight with any kind of weapon. They can also cast spells like a magic user and use the same spell list. A character must have an intelligence of 9 or greater to be an elf. Special abilities. Elves have infravision, heat-sensing sight, and can see 60 feet in the dark. When looking for secret or hidden doors, elves are able to find them 1/3 of the time, a roll of 1 or 2 on a die 6. Elves cannot be paralyzed by the attacks of ghouls. All elves speak Common, Elvish, and the alignment tongue of the character, plus the languages of orcs, hobgoblins, and gnolls. Yeah, as you can see, in basic Dungeons & Dragons, your profession is your race, unless you're human. Halflings. Halflings are small, good-natured demi-humans averaging only 3 feet in height and weighing about 60 pounds. They are outgoing but not unusually brave, seeking treasure as a way of gaining the comforts of home, which they so dearly love. The prime requisites for a halfling are strength and dexterity. A halfling character whose strength or dexterity score is 13 or greater will receive a 5% bonus to earned experience. Halflings whose strength and dexterity scores are 13 or greater will receive a bonus of 10% to earned experience. Restrictions. Halflings use 6-sided dice to determine their hit points. They may advance to a maximum of 8th level of experience. Halflings can use any type of weapon and armor which has been cut down to their size. Thus, they cannot use a 2-handed sword or a long bow, but may use a sword or short bow. Halflings must have a minimum score of 9 in both dexterity and constitution. Special abilities. Halflings have better saving throws than most other character classes. They are very accurate with all missile weapons, gain a bonus of +1 in addition to dexterity adjustments on their 2-hit rolls when using them. Due to their small size and skills at dodging, halflings have a bonus of -2 to their armor class when being attacked by creatures larger than man size. When rolling for individual initiative, an optional rule, halflings add +1 in addition to any dexterity adjustments outdoors. Halflings are difficult to spot, having the ability to seemingly vanish into woods and underbrush. Halflings have only a 10% chance of being detected in this type of cover, and even in dungeons there is a 1/3 chance, a roll of 1 or 2 on a die 6, that a halfling will not be seen in normal light if the character finds some cover, such as shadows, and remains absolutely quiet and still. I would read from you the expert basic book, the descriptions of the races in there, but it doesn't really add anything to what I just read to you here from the basic book. And then, like I said, humans can be clerics, fighters, magic users, or thieves, because humans are apparently good at being diverse, whereas the other races are not, those unimaginative suckers that they are. That's the basic book, and you might be thinking, well, you're comparing the basic book to 3rd edition Shadowrun. Yeah, well, we're going to move on and look at the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rules. So, all right, so this is the Advanced D&D Player's Handbook. This, there was a variant cover version. Let me go back here. So this is the version that I'm looking at. There was a version of this book that had a different cover, like the statue of a devil and adventurers pulling out the gem eyes of the devil. But we're going to go into this. This is one that I had. I never had the other version. And I got rid of it because it's like, what's the point of having all these D&D books that I'm never going to use? And I don't need to have these rules because there's way better rules out there for gaming. As you can see here, we're on the page that describes kind of like how the races are different. Let's take a quick look here at, say, Dwarf. They have a minimum and maximum for their attributes. Humans don't have that. Humans have the full range of every attribute. So if you want to play a Dwarf, you have to have an 8 strength minimum. You can only have a maximum if you're of 18, and that's if you're male, I believe. It's 17 if you're female. So you have to have a constitution of 12 out of 18, by the way, in case you're not a gamer. This is out of 18. And your maximum charisma is 16. And this is the way it is with all of the different races, right? They all have minimums and maximums. Half elves would be the most human-like here, but they even got minimums and maximums. Like your intelligence has to be a 4 minimum. Your wisdom, your dexterity has to be a 6. Your constitution has to be a 6, which is weird because D&D nerfs constitution for elves. Literally, I mean, why does an elf have to have a minimum of 6 constitution when the minimum should be 3? And actually, in the case of elves, it should be 2 because elves get a natural -1 to their constitution. But we look over here, say, let's look at the dwarf to start off with. We're not going to read this whole thing because that is a lot of information. You can read it if you want to. You can pause the video. But I want to look at, let's see here. A character of the dwarven race can be a fighter. Maximum of 9th level. Out of 20, by the way. 20 levels, and you can only be 9th. A thief or an assassin. Maximum of 9th level. There is only 9th level for the dwarf. It is possible for the dwarf character to opt to work simultaneously in the fighter and thief classes. Okay? Elves. A character of elven stock can opt to be a fighter. Maximum of 7th level. Okay, great. Elves don't get that many bonuses to offset that. A magic user, maximum of 11th level. A thief or an assassin, maximum of 10th level. And then they can multi-class as a fighter magic user, a fighter thief, a magic user thief, or a fighter magic user thief. Yeah, so you're limited out of level 20. You can only be a level 11, and that's only in Magic User or Wizard. And this is the case for all of the races in D&D. Gnomes, they can be a fighter, an illusionist, fighter 6th level maximum, an illusionist 7th level, a thief or an assassin, and go all the way up to 8th level, and then they can multi-class in those. So it is pretty ridiculous how restrictive D&D is with the races, with the different races. In Shadowrun, there are no classes really. There are some limitations because if you take magic, you're not going to want to have cybernetics. If you have any cybernetics, you're not going to want to use magic at very high level. You're going to have to keep that, if you can use magic, then you're going to want to keep that really low, because if you go higher, you're going to hurt yourself. If you're playing a physical adept, which is a mystic warrior, a magically imbued fighting man, you're not going to get any cybernetics, and you're not going to want to stray off that path. But I mean, those are just cultural restrictions due to the world. Let's go over and take a look here at this. I want to look at this part up here. This is a racial reference table. What are we looking at here? This is still the same book. This is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. You have dwarf, elf, gnome, halfling, half-elf, half-orc, and humans. Those are the playable races in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition. And this chart here tells you how they get along with one another. They built racist rules into the game. This is really why D&D has this problem, because they are racializing everything in the game. And I don't even care. I honestly do not care. I never put level restrictions on the different races. I didn't care. I was like, whatever. If you are an elf, you can go up to a level 100. We're going to keep playing. It doesn't matter how many levels you get. We're going to keep playing, and you're going to get more and more power. But you can see here a P indicates that the race is generally preferred. A G means they have goodwill towards the race. A T indicates that they are tolerated. An N shows that they're neutral. An A means that the race is greeted with antipathy, and an H means hatred. Well, you can look at the chart here and see how the different races get along. We got H's here with a half-orc. Dwarves hate half-orcs. Half-orcs and gnomes hate each other as well. Those are the only H's you're going to find. I've looked through here. Dwarves and gnomes and half-orcs. They don't get along. Dwarves and gnomes get along fine with each other. It looks like they have goodwill here with the gnome and the dwarf, and goodwill with the dwarf and the gnome. Of course, the reasoning being is that dwarves and orcs and gnomes all are competing for the same area, underground caves. And so orcs and dwarves don't get along, and orcs and gnomes don't get along, but somehow dwarves and gnomes do get along. Okay. I think that says something specific about orcs, that they are cruel and not intelligent, really. If you look at the half-orc here, what kind of modifications do they get? They have, let me go back. Turn the page. There you go. All right, so the half-orc gets a +1 to both their strength and constitution scores, but they must subtract a charisma penalty of -2. That's it. That doesn't even apply to intelligence. That's for the half-orc. The orcs are actually weirder. They get like a bonus to strength, but then a negative modifier to intelligence and wisdom and charisma. So they are definitely less intelligent, but they are somehow stronger, and only stronger. They don't get the constitution bonus. And this was actually, that's based on 2nd edition, because in 1st edition you really were not allowed to play anything other than these 7 races here. And in 2nd edition you weren't allowed to play even half-orcs. Half-orcs had been X'd. They had been axed out of the game. But then 2nd edition released a ton of supplements. 2nd edition released more books than any other version of Dungeons & Dragons. And they had the Humanoids Handbook, complete book of humanoids. And that went through that they talked about like 30 different races you could play that were not these standard 6 races that were allowed in Dungeons & Dragons. And so you could play an orc or half-orc. And the information I'm giving you regarding orcs and their attributes compared to half-orcs and their attributes. That's where I'm getting that information from. That and 3rd edition. So, yeah, D&D doesn't understand that, hey, race is part of the game, and if somebody complains about it, too bad. This is all about their ESG score, I'm sure. That they want to look, we're good allies. You know, we did the right thing. We towed the line. We pretended to be not racist, even though you're being even more racist when you're pretending to not be racist. And even though your game originally has built-in rules for how to be racist in the game. It's so crazy to me that this problem of, hey, look, there's racism in Dungeons & Dragons, we've got to do away with that, is purely a Dungeons & Dragons problem. And it's never been a problem in any other game that I've ever played. Ever. I mean, you play Talislanta, which I keep telling you should play Talislanta. 58 different races in the game. And they are not shy about saying, hey, look, these two races don't get along. Hey, these two races try to genocide each other or whatever. It's because that's the reality we live in. That's just how it is. There are good people in the world who are intelligent, and there are bad people in the world who are intelligent. It's the same way with racial disposition when you're going to have these sorts of games, because you have to have tension, drama somehow. That half demon race over there, they're all good. It's fine. They're really nice people. They'll give you the shirt off their backs, the salt of the earth. No, they're half demons. They're going to want to kill you if you're not like them. That's just how it works. And of course, you could write all sorts of different backstories and be like, oh, the half demons are good. And hey, that could be an interesting thing where they have this reputation of being evil and they're not. Wow, it's amazing what we can do with storytelling. What do you know? What a concept. I never thought of such a thing. Anyway, thank you for watching. I do appreciate everybody's time. I really do appreciate you supporting my biggest passion in life, along with talking about anti-wokeness and how that's so bad for the world. But I'll see you in the next video.